Okay, so look, Seth MacFarlane, bless his little heart, has a way of just, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Sometimes it's a masterpiece of animation, other times it's this. Season 24, episode 13, folks. The one where Stewie gets engaged. Yeah, you heard me, engaged. And before you start thinking this is going to be some heartwarming, Disney-esque tale of finding true love, let me just tell you, this is Family Guy. We're talking about a baby who wants to marry his teddy bear. And honestly, compared to some of the chaos that unfolds, that's practically the sanest part. But the real kicker? By the end of this whole mess, you'll be asking yourself if the writers accidentally stumbled into a dark comedy about commitment, celebrity lawsuits, and the existential dread of running out of good ideas. And spoiler alert, they probably did. You will not believe the turn this episode takes in the last act. It's a gut punch you won't see coming. All right, so before we dive headfirst into the rabbit hole of what Family Guy decided to do this week, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. If you like seeing your favorite animated shows get absolutely eviscerated with witty commentary. It's like a public service, really. And hey, if you're already subscribed, maybe ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more of these deep dives into animated absurdity. It's free, and it helps me keep the lights on, so win-win. So this episode, Family Guy Season 24, Episode 13. On the surface, it's all about Stewie's sudden urge to get married, like really married, to Rupert, because of course. But peel back that onion, and you've got a lot more going on. It's like they had a bingo card of modern anxieties and just started checking them off. Celebrity drama, AI fears, the crushing weight of loneliness, questionable life choices, and the eternal question of what makes a relationship actually last. We start with Peter and Lois trying to have a romantic night in, which naturally devolves into them watching their own ancient, probably awful sex tape. Seriously, who keeps these things? And their reactions? Hilarious. Peter's just confused about the technical quality, while Lois is mortified by his anatomical revelations. It's a classic Peter and Lois dynamic, the pathetic attempts at intimacy mixed with sheer, unadulterated awkwardness. Meanwhile, Stewie's spiraling. He sees them, he overhears Brian lamenting his single status, and suddenly, bam.
Wedding bells are ringing in his tiny, egomaniacal brain. He's not ready to be old and alone like Bill Clinton, apparently. That's a deep-cut show. Real deep. And it's funny because it's so out of left field for Stewie, who usually has everything planned down to the last molecule. This is pure, unadulterated panic, fueled by a very specific, very weird fear. Then there's the whole Justin Baldoni and Ryan Reynolds thing. I'm still not entirely sure what that was about, other than a very strange way to insert some current pop culture references into the show. It felt tacked on, a bit desperate even, like they were just trying to fill airtime with names people might recognize. And the idea that Justin Baldoni might be AI? Classic Family Guy paranoia, I guess, though it doesn't really connect to anything else. The episode tries to juggle all these storylines, but it feels less like a cohesive narrative and more like a series of disconnected sketches. Some jokes land, others feel like they were written by a committee trying too hard. The writing quality overall is uneven. It's got those flashes of brilliance Family Guy is known for, but then it dips into the painfully predictable or just plain weird. Visually, it's your standard Family Guy fare. Nothing groundbreaking, no moments that scream cinematic masterpiece. The pacing felt a bit off too, with some plot threads getting way too much attention and others just kind of fading away. My initial verdict, it's a messy episode. It has some genuinely funny moments, and the Stewie Rupert wedding plot is inherently absurd, which is its strength. But the other tangents feel like distractions. It's not the worst episode of the season, but it's definitely not the best. It's more of a middle-of-the-road, let's see what happens kind of installment that ultimately feels like it's going through the motions a bit. The potential for something great is there, but it's buried under a pile of random jokes and slightly baffling character motivations. Okay, let's talk about that absolute chaos that was Stewie's sudden engagement to Rupert. I mean, who sees their parents fumbling through a romantic evening and decides, you know what, I need to get married? Stewie, apparently. His reasoning is peak Stewie, though. He's terrified of ending up alone, referencing Bill Clinton, of all people. It's this perfect storm of his usual existential dread and a very childlike misunderstanding of relationships. The idea that he's in his prime, at the age of a baby, with a steady allowance and time-traveling abilities and still can't find a partner?
It's hysterical because it highlights his inherent self-centeredness. And when he asks Brian about it, Brian's response is just, well, it's Brian. He tries to be the voice of reason, but he's also a single, often drunk dog, so his advice is questionable at best. He's dealing with his own romantic woes, or lack thereof, and Stewie's situation just highlights that for him. Then the proposal itself. Rupert, a teddy bear, magically asking for Stewie's hand. And Stewie's reaction? Pure, unadulterated joy, followed by a scramble to plan a wedding. The idea of a wedding registry is genius. Stewie buying a $300 pasta maker for Rupert? It speaks volumes about their relationship, or rather, Stewie's perception of it. He wants the best for his furry soulmate, even if it means ridiculous items that no actual human would need. The fettuccine attachment for Rupert's heartier noodle is just chef's kiss of disturbing innuendo. And Brian's reaction to the registry, his sheer disbelief at the prices, is so relatable. It's the practical friend trying to navigate the absurd fantasies of the obsessed one. This whole subplot is a fantastic showcase of Stewie's character, his ambition, his dramatic flair, his capacity for both intense love and utterly baffling decisions. It also really highlights the odd dynamic between Stewie and Rupert, which, let's be honest, is one of the most enduring and bizarre relationships in the show's history. This moment is where the episode truly finds its footing, embracing the inherent silliness of Stewie's world and turning it into something surprisingly compelling, even if it's just for a few minutes. It's a moment that perfectly encapsulates Family Guy's ability to take a simple premise and spin it into a complex, albeit often nonsensical, narrative. Then there's that absolutely bizarre tangent about the sex tape. Peter and Lois, bless their hearts, are trying to have a date night, and it just ends up with them watching their own creation, and their reactions are gold. Peter's concerned about the technical aspects, like the amount of coughing and sneezing, which is frankly hilarious. He's not focused on the intimacy or the embarrassment, but on the production value. Lois, bless her, is mortified, and her quiet groans are perfect. The dialogue about whether it's the tape that kills you if you watch it in 7 days adds another layer of absurdity. It's a dark humor joke that's classic Family Guy, poking fun at urban legends and the general grossness of some early internet phenomena.
It also serves as a weirdly effective commentary on their relationship. They're so far past the point of romantic sparks that even their attempts at sex are archived and reviewed like a bad movie. The idea that they're in a lull and Peter falls asleep while they're supposed to be intimate is peak Peter and Lois. It's sad, but it's also hysterically funny. And the interruption by the garbage truck? That's the universe telling them something, isn't it? It's a perfect metaphor for how their attempts at romance are constantly being interrupted or ruined by the mundane and the gross. The dialogue about the trash cans being 3 inches apart, it's a small detail, but it's the kind of petty argument that makes their dynamic so believable even in its extreme form. This whole sequence, while not directly tied to Stewie's wedding, provides a darkly comedic backdrop to the episode's themes of commitment and relationships. It's the adult perspective, showing the messy reality that Stewie is so desperately trying to avoid by jumping into marriage. Now, let's talk about the genuinely disturbing, yet somehow still funny, Banshees of Ed Sheeran segment. The premise is wild, a threat to cut off fingers for every new song released. It's such a specific and violent threat, aimed at a very contemporary, generally inoffensive artist. This is Family Guy at its most delightfully petty. The idea that someone would go to such extreme lengths over music is absurd, but the way they frame it as a new track coming out makes it even funnier. The title of the song, Weak-Chinned Ginger Lover, is just peak insult comedy. It's the kind of joke that's so over the top it circles back around to being brilliant. And the line, "Brr, is it cold in here? Or maybe it's me, 'cause I brought the ice," is such a classic Stewieism. He's always got some dramatic flair, some theatrical entrance. This whole bit showcases Stewie's ability to be both incredibly petty and incredibly theatrical, a combination that makes him one of the show's most iconic characters. It's a short segment, but it packs a punch. It's a great example of how Family Guy can take a current cultural figure and just twist them into something unrecognizable and hilarious. It's not just about making fun of Ed Sheeran, it's about the absurdity of modern celebrity culture and the over-the-top reactions people can have to art. This moment in particular feels like a direct attack on the oversaturation of popular music and the sometimes extreme opinions people form about artists they don't like.
It's a fleeting moment, but it's a strong indicator of the show's willingness to go to extreme lengths for a laugh, even if it means antagonizing a global superstar. Then we get to the core of Stewie's wedding plans, the best man speech. Brian naturally assumes he's the best man, and his shock when Stewie reveals he wants him to be the ring bearer instead is a brilliant character moment. Brian's ego is constantly bruised by Stewie's dismissiveness, and this is a prime example. He's supposed to be Stewie's intellectual equal, his confidant, and he's relegated to carrying a pillow. Stewie's reasoning that Brian would be cute on all fours is just Stewie being Stewie, brutally honest and incredibly condescending. And then the revelation that Chris is the best man. Chris, the lovable doofus who can barely string a sentence together. The irony is palpable. Stewie's logic that Chris is somehow more charismatic is a hilarious jab at Brian's perceived superiority complex and Chris's own unique brand of charming incompetence. The best man speech itself, or rather the lack of one from Brian, highlights his own struggles with eloquence and his reliance on Stewie for intellectual validation. He can barely read or write thanks to the school system replacing English with DoorDash training. That's a brilliant cutting satire on modern education and vocational training. The DoorDash training subplot with the "how many fries can you take" quiz and the "this is how they gave it to me" mantra is a perfect microcosm of the show's commentary on societal shifts and the devaluation of traditional skills. It's dark, it's cynical, but it's also incredibly funny. Chris's line about not reading delivery instructions and just repeating the phrase is a perfect example of his character. Simple, unquestioning, and easily manipulated. The moment where he gets a standing ovation for his DoorDash training prowess is the cherry on top of the satirical sundae. It's a brilliant, albeit bleak, commentary on the state of education and the workforce. Oh, and then there's that whole bewildering sequence involving Justin Baldoni and Ryan Reynolds. I'm still trying to figure out the point of this. We get this random dialogue where Peter's reading People magazine, Snoopy, Fit and Fabulous at 75. Who is writing this stuff? And then this whole bit about Blake Lively suing someone in Prince Edward Island. It's like they grabbed a handful of celebrity gossip headlines and just threw them into the script.
And Justin Baldoni? I'm with Peter. Who even is that guy? The idea that he just appeared out of nowhere and might be AI is peak Family Guy paranoia. And the wish that Ryan Reynolds would give him a good bop on the Beezer is just a bizarrely specific, aggressive piece of advice. It feels like a forced attempt to be topical, but it lands with a thud. It's this kind of scattershot humor that can sometimes work for the show, but here, it just feels lazy. It doesn't connect to anything else in the episode, and it feels like they just wanted to drop some recognizable names. The whole thing is so random, it makes you wonder if there was a bet in the writer's room to see how much nonsensical celebrity chatter they could cram into an episode without anyone noticing. It's a prime example of the show sometimes sacrificing coherence for a quick pop culture jab. It's the kind of joke that makes you pause and think, did they even try to make this fit? And the answer, unfortunately, is often no. Let's talk about the skincare horror show. Lois is getting peels before the wedding, and her face looks not great. The visual gag of her peeling skin is classic Family Guy gross-out humor. The line about it going to look gorg the day of is darkly optimistic, and the whole concept of nautical cottagecore as a wedding theme is just peak Stewie. He's always trying to combine disparate and often contradictory aesthetics to create something uniquely bizarre. Rustic and Regency? Already too normal. But nautical and cottagecore? That's a level of aesthetic madness only Stewie could conceive. It's a visual and conceptual clash that's inherently funny. And Peter's reaction, "You're crazy," is the audience's reaction. But then Stewie's justification, crazy like a blender whirring, followed by the blender noise, implies he's about to go even crazier. This whole scene is a great illustration of Stewie's ambition and his willingness to push boundaries, even in wedding planning. It also perfectly captures the dynamic between Peter and Stewie. Peter is the grounded, albeit dim, observer, reacting with simple bewilderment to Stewie's elaborate schemes. Stewie, meanwhile, is the visionary, the mad genius, convinced that his outlandish ideas are revolutionary. It's a classic father-son interaction, albeit with a baby and a talking teddy bear involved. The visual of Stewie's face, whatever state it's in, coupled with the ridiculous theme, makes this moment unforgettable. It's the kind of joke that sticks with you long after the episode is over, a testament to the show's ability to create memorable, albeit unsettling, imagery.
Okay, the whole plus ones without significant others debate is where Family Guy really dives into the social anxieties of modern dating and relationships. Stewie, in his wedding planning frenzy, is trying to be ruthless. He's establishing strict rules for plus ones, at least 6 months of dating, minimum 3 grid posts together. This is the ultimate embodiment of performative social media relationships translated into real-life wedding etiquette. It's hilarious because it's so specific and so utterly ridiculous for a wedding involving a baby and a teddy bear. The idea of a friends with benefits situation that could eventually turn into a real relationship not being enough is peak Family Guy cynicism. They're basically saying that if your relationship isn't perfectly curated and validated by Instagram, it doesn't count. Brian's reaction, scraping bread loudly, is his passive-aggressive way of showing his disdain. He's the voice of grudging pragmatism, the one stuck dealing with Stewie's insane demands. He's also clearly annoyed about being relegated to errands, like picking up centerpieces. The description of the centerpieces as phallus-shaped is just another layer of Family Guy vulgarity, but it also ties back into the episode's broader themes of sex and relationships, even in their most awkward and unsophisticated forms. Brian's job as best man is turning into that of a glorified errand boy, which is a classic sitcom trope, but here it's amplified by Stewie's sociopathic control. It's a clever way to show how Stewie's wedding obsession is affecting everyone around him, turning them into unwilling participants in his bizarre fantasy. And the fraternity brothers, this is where things get truly unhinged. Stewie's fraternity brothers? From where? Lambda Chi or Bank of America? The joke about them all working at Bank of America and the Freedom Flex reward card is such a specific, niche jab at corporate culture and the mundane realities that even seemingly wild college experiences can lead to. It's this perfect blend of past wildness and present corporate drudgery. The dialogue about where Brian does his checking is another bit of mundane banking talk thrown into the mix, highlighting the banality that often follows youthful rebellion. The revelation that Stewie didn't go to college, that he didn't go to class, is met with laughter and stories of his legendary status. The dump that clogged the whole house, the tailor-made golf bag anecdote, these are the kind of exaggerated, absurd stories that create a cult of personality around Stewie, even among people who barely know him.
He's a legend, a myth, the guy who took a dump that got stuck. And the "he banged my dad" as a goof line? That's the kind of shocking, non-sequitur humor that Family Guy excels at. It's so far beyond what's expected, it becomes funny. The idea that he's always banging dads and that you hate to be an unbanged dad around that guy paints Stewie as this chaotic, unpredictable force, even in his supposed college years. It's a hilarious, if deeply inappropriate, characterization that solidifies his legendary status in this bizarre frat world. This whole segment is a fantastic example of how Family Guy builds its world with layers of absurdity and unexpected connections, making Stewie's outlandish plans feel oddly plausible within the show's logic. Now, let's talk about the sheer, unadulterated horror of that sex tape again. When Peter and Lois watch it, it's not just the act itself that's bad, it's the lingering questions, like Peter's ass crack. Lois's observation that, as an outside observer, it seems like it would be very long, is a masterclass in understatement. It's the kind of observation that makes you both cringe and laugh because it's so blunt and so accurate to their relationship. The comparison to their own tape being bad and needing to recast Joe for a porn they made is another layer of absurdity. It implies that their sex lives are so dire they have to hire actors, or at least types of actors, to make it believable. The fact that Joe Swanson, the quadriplegic neighbor, is being considered for a role in their porn is peak Family Guy shock value. It's offensive, it's weird, and it's something only the show would attempt. The entire segment is a testament to the show's ability to push boundaries and delve into the most uncomfortable aspects of human relationships and sexuality. The gross-out humor, the unexpected celebrity cameos or implied cameos, and the sheer audacity of the premise make it a memorable, if not entirely pleasant, viewing experience. It's a reminder that Family Guy is not for the faint of heart, and sometimes the most uncomfortable moments are the ones that linger the longest. And then we have the fallout from the sex tape being released. Tom Tucker's deadpan delivery of the news, calling it a nature documentary instead of pornography, is the icing on the cake. It's the kind of media absurdity that Family Guy loves to lampoon. The idea that YouTube wouldn't even censor it, just classify it as educational, is a commentary on how desensitized we've become.
Peter's rationale, "I thought that's where you put things that are just for you," is hilariously naive. It's the ignorance of a man who doesn't understand the internet, or probably anything beyond his own immediate gratification. The news report itself, with Peter coughing and kissing and the garbage truck beeping in the background, provides a surreal and darkly comedic soundtrack to their marital woes. It's the perfect blend of domestic chaos and public humiliation. And the GoFundMe for Venkatesh? The fact that they're still trying to support his sister, who is 42 and very wealthy, is peak Family Guy absurdity. It highlights the show's cynicism about charity and familial obligation. It's a jab at the performative nature of some charitable giving, where even the rich feel obligated to participate. Brian's refusal to donate is understandable, given the entire week he's had dealing with Stewie's wedding demands. He's been treated like a servant, and now he's being asked to fund a stranger's life. It's a good way to show the cumulative effect of Stewie's wedding obsession, which has turned Brian into a resentful, overworked assistant. Okay, let's talk about Brian being treated like a service animal. It's such a perfect description of his role in Stewie's wedding planning. He's being yanked around, forced to do errands, and generally treated as subservient. The lavender field experience being eaten by Brian when no one showed up is a funny, albeit slightly cruel, jab at his own failed ventures. He tried to have a solo spiritual experience, and it ended up costing him money and probably a lot of dignity. Lois's quick deflection about the money, blaming it on Brian's eating habits, is classic manipulative Lois. She's trying to smooth things over, but she's also subtly blaming him. The best man versus ring bearer dynamic is revisited, with Stewie infantilizing Brian even further by making him wear the pillow on all fours. It's a brutal humiliation, and it's clear that Brian has reached his breaking point. The callback to the strip club pasta and Venkatesh's death is just, wow. That's dark. The idea that Venkatesh is talking about the pasta before he died and that Brian ate a significant portion of it is a gross-out joke that also serves as a karmic punishment. Brian's refusal to attend the wedding, his declaration of being done being humiliated, is a cathartic moment for him and for the audience who's watched him suffer all week. And Lois's casual agreement, combined with her immediate plan to eat his steak, is a perfect, selfish Lois move. It's a hilariously petty way to end their argument. The whole pretending we want salmon bit is a final, pathetic attempt at unity that collapses under the weight of their individual desires and frustrations. So, what's the deal with this episode? It's a chaotic mess, but in the best Family Guy way. Stewie's wedding to Rupert is the central ridiculous premise, but the real meat of the episode is in the tangents. We've got Peter and Lois's awkward attempts at romance and their terrible sex tape, Brian's descent into subservience as Stewie's unwilling best man turned ring bearer, and a whole host of random celebrity jobs and social commentaries. The episode tries to be a lot of things: a wedding comedy, a satire on relationships, a critique of modern celebrity culture, and a commentary on education. It bites off more than it can chew, honestly. The writing is uneven, with some jokes landing perfectly and others feeling like they were pulled from a discarded notebook. The pacing is all over the place, jumping from one ridiculous scenario to another without much seamless transition. It's a classic example of Family Guy firing on all cylinders 1 minute and then sputtering out the next. You get these flashes of genius, like the DoorDash training and the Ed Sheeran finger-chopping threat, but they're interspersed with bits that just feel aimless. Visually, it's fine. It looks like Family Guy. Nothing stands out, but nothing is actively bad either. The direction is serviceable, keeping the chaos moving without adding much stylistic flair. My verdict? It's a decent, if flawed, episode. It's got enough laugh-out-loud moments and bizarre scenarios to keep you entertained, but it's not going to be remembered as a classic. It's a throwaway episode, enjoyable in the moment, but ultimately forgettable. It's for the die-hard fans who will watch anything and who appreciate the show's particular brand of insane humor, even when it's not firing on all cylinders. It's the kind of episode that reminds you why you watch Family Guy, but also why you sometimes question your life choices for doing so. Let's dissect that bizarre moment where Stewie is planning his wedding, and the conversation about +1s turns into a full-blown social media analytics lesson. Stewie's decree that guests need at least 6 months of dating history and a minimum of 3 grid posts together is just chef's kiss of modern absurdity. It's not enough to be dating. You have to prove it online. The idea of a friends with benefits situation being disqualified unless there are 3 grid posts? That's a level of cynical detachment from reality that's both horrifying and hilarious. It perfectly captures the performative aspect of relationships in the age of social media. People aren't just dating, they're curating a public image of their relationship. Brian's quiet scraping of bread is his passive-aggressive way of showing his utter disdain for this whole charade. He's the pragmatic one, forced to deal with Stewie's increasingly insane demands, and his subtle acts of rebellion are a welcome relief. The detail about the centerpieces being phallus-shaped is classic Family Guy, a crude joke that lands because it's so unexpected in the context of wedding planning. It ties back to the episode's broader, often uncomfortable, exploration of sex and relationships. It's a moment that's both gross and funny, and it highlights how Stewie's wedding obsession is bleeding into every aspect of their lives, no matter how inappropriate. It shows Stewie's complete lack of understanding of real-world relationships, reducing them to quantifiable metrics and social media validation. It's a stark reminder that Stewie, despite his intelligence, is still a baby with a twisted worldview, and his wedding plans are a perfect reflection of that. Then there's the entire sequence where Brian is clearly being used and abused by Stewie's wedding demands, culminating in the Lavender Field incident. Brian, who is supposed to be the sophisticated, intellectual one, is reduced to running errands and having his own personal experiences ruined. The detail that he ate $1,200 worth of Lavender Field experience because no one showed up is a hilarious and pathetic indictment of his failed ventures. It's the kind of self-inflicted wound that Brian often finds himself in, but here it's amplified by Stewie's absolute disregard for his well-being. Lois's quick pivot to blaming Brian for eating the money is classic Lois, deflecting and manipulating. She's trying to maintain peace, but she's also ensuring Brian takes the fall. Stewie's condescending tone when he brings up the best man versus ring bearer argument and the imagery of Brian having to wear the pillow on all fours is pure Stewie. It's a public humiliation designed to break Brian, and it nearly works. The callback to the strip club pasta and Venkatesh's death is a genuinely dark and disturbing moment that shows how far the writers are willing to go.
The implication that Brian ate a significant portion of that pasta before Venkatesh died is a gross-out joke with a surprisingly morbid undertone. Brian's final declaration of being done being humiliated and his refusal to attend the wedding is a much-needed moment of defiance. It's a cathartic point for his character as he finally stands up for himself against Stewie's tyranny. Lois's casual dismissal of his anger, followed by her immediate focus on eating his steak, is the perfect selfish Lois response. It's a masterclass in passive aggression and a fittingly absurd end to their escalating conflict. Okay, so the character heat check. Stewie obviously is the engine of this episode. His obsession with marrying Rupert drives the entire plot, and his sociopathic planning and ego are on full display. He's not just a baby, he's a tiny, tweed-wearing dictator. He's at his most intelligent and his most deranged here, and it's a fantastic performance. He's using his intellect for something utterly pointless, which is classic Stewie. Brian, on the other hand, is the victim. He's constantly trying to be the voice of reason and the best friend, but he's consistently undermined and humiliated. His descent into subservience, from best man to ring bearer on all fours, is painful to watch, but also incredibly funny. He's a classic sitcom foil, and this episode really leans into that. His suffering is the audience's entertainment. Lois is playing the role of the slightly oblivious but manipulative wife. She tries to keep the peace, but she's quick to deflect blame and prioritize her own comfort. Her nautical cottagecore theme and her desire for nice things for Stewie show a surprisingly indulgent side. Peter is Peter. He's mostly reacting to the chaos around him, offering dim-witted commentary and getting caught up in the random tangents. His sex tape concerns are peak Peter, superficial and focused on the wrong details. He serves as a grounding force of pure idiocy against Stewie's genius madness. Chris is surprisingly absent for large chunks of this, but when he's around, he's Chris. Lovable, dopey, and somehow appointed best man over Brian, which is a testament to Stewie's bizarre logic. He's the pure id, the opposite of Brian's superego. His role as best man is more about Stewie's ironic choice than any actual contribution to the wedding planning. It's a character arc that's less about growth and more about Stewie's twisted sense of humor. Now for the hidden gems and Easter eggs.
First off, the Snoopy Fit and Fabulous at 75 from People magazine. This is a brilliant piece of observational humor from the writers. Snoopy, a cartoon dog, is a pop culture icon, and the idea of him being subjected to the same kind of fawning celebrity coverage as a human is perfectly absurd. It's a subtle jab at the media's obsession with aging and appearance, even for fictional characters. Then there's the Justin Baldoni-Ryan Reynolds bit. While it feels a bit random, it's also a clever meta-commentary. Justin Baldoni is known for Jane the Virgin, where he plays a character who's essentially a perfect, almost AI-like figure of goodness. Ryan Reynolds, on the other hand, is known for his sharp, self-aware humor and his own brand of celebrity. The idea of Ryan Reynolds bopping him on the beezer is a fan-cast fantasy, a little inside joke for those who follow celebrity culture. The Ed Sheeran song title, Weak-Chinned Ginger Lover, is a direct insult that's so specific it's funny. It's the kind of petty, targeted humor that Family Guy excels at, taking a generally well-liked figure and twisting them into a caricature.
The DoorDash training replacing the English department is a sharp, timely satire on modern vocational training and the perceived decline of traditional education. The mantra, "This is how they gave it to me," is a perfect encapsulation of a generation trained to accept things without question. And finally, the fact that Stewie's frat brothers are all working at Bank of America and discussing reward cards. This is a brilliant, cynical observation about how even the wildest college experiences can lead to the most mundane corporate jobs. It's a dark commentary on the realities of adult life and the often disappointing trajectory after graduation. It's a subtle nod to the idea that everyone eventually end up in a race, no matter how much they rebelled in their youth. Let's talk about what Family Guy got wrong, or at least what could have been better. First, the Justin Baldoni subplot. It's a complete non sequitur. It feels like a desperate attempt to inject topical humor that just falls flat and distracts from the main story. Instead of this random celebrity chat, they could have focused more on Stewie's wedding planning, maybe exploring Rupert's needs more deeply, or showing Peter and Lois's relationship dynamics in a more substantial way. My alternative? Cut it entirely. It adds nothing. Second, the pacing of the episode felt rushed in places.
The transition from Peter and Lois watching their sex tape to Stewie's wedding panic felt abrupt. They could have used a scene where Brian is trying to have a serious conversation with Stewie about commitment, only for Stewie to dismiss him and launch into his wedding plans. This would have made Stewie's sudden decision feel slightly more motivated, even if it's still insane. It would also give Brian a more active role in the early part of the episode, rather than just being a bystander. My alternative? Add a connective scene between the parents' romantic misadventure and Stewie's decision. It would give the episode more narrative flow. Third, the ending felt a bit anticlimactic. While Brian's defiance is satisfying, the overall resolution of Stewie's wedding plans feels unresolved. It just sort of ends with a fight about salmon. My alternative? Have the wedding actually happen, but in a hilariously disastrous way, with Rupert revealing he's not actually sentient, or something equally absurd. That would provide a stronger comedic payoff and a more definitive conclusion to Stewie's wedding arc for the episode. It's not just about the argument, it's about the ridiculous goal itself falling apart in a spectacular fashion. So for this episode, I'm giving it a solid 6.7 out of 10. It's not a disaster, but it's far from a masterpiece. The points lost are primarily due to the uneven writing, the scattered tangents, and the pacing issues. The 0.7 is for the sheer audacity of the Stewie Rupert wedding concept, the DoorDash tanning satire, and a few genuinely laugh-out-loud moments like the Ed Sheeran threat and Peter's sex tape concerns. This episode is really for the die-hard Family Guy fans, the ones who appreciate the show's commitment to being weird and offensive, even when it's not landing perfectly. If you're looking for sharp social commentary, you'll find some flashes, but don't expect a cohesive argument. If you're looking for pure, unadulterated absurdity and character-driven chaos, you'll get that in spades. What would have pushed this score higher? A tighter focus on the core storylines and a more cohesive narrative. If they had stuck to Stewie's wedding and Brian's suffering, without the random celebrity chatter and the poorly integrated sex tape subplot, it could have been a much stronger episode. And to loop back to where we started, Seth MacFarlane and his team threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall with this one. Some of it stuck, forming a weird, vaguely wedding-shaped blob, while the rest splattered uselessly across the animated kitchen. It's an episode that embodies the show's strengths and weaknesses, leaving you with a mix of laughter, confusion, and the lingering question of why you just watched all of that. But hey, at least we got the DoorDash training out of it, right?